Over the boundless fields of white, the wind howled in fury, hurling snow like blades, crushing fences, breaking windows, and drowning every sound in a suffocating silence. A 6-year-old girl lay curled beside a half-collapsed shed, her thin frame trembling, her small hands clutched around a faded teddy bear whose seams had long unraveled. Her hair was tangled, dark brown strands frozen into brittle ropes by the storm, and her wide eyes shimmered with unshed tears. Each breath came out ragged, a whisper of steam against the unforgiving blizzard. She had been left here, discarded like a broken toy, her tiny body pressed against the snow-soaked wall in a desperate attempt to feel less cold. Not far away, a soldier trudged forward, boots crunching through drifts that swallowed his calves. His camouflage uniform was ragged, patched over years of service, and his face carried lines etched by grief and battles fought in silence. Beside him padded a German Shepherd K9, the dog's head low, ears flicking back against the icy wind. They moved as one, silent, steady, the soldier leaning on his companion as much as the dog relied on him. Before we begin, let me know where you are watching from. Leave your country name in the comments below. And if you love stories about courage, loyalty, and community, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next stories. The soldier saw movement by the shed, a shape too small, too fragile to be anything but human. His heart tightened. Without a word, the K9 bounded forward, paws kicking up snow, nose pressing urgently against the child's shoulder. The girl flinched, clutching her teddy tighter, whispering something too faint to hear. The soldier dropped to one knee, his body protesting with every movement. Old wounds screamed under the cold, but his eyes locked on hers. "It's all right," he said softly, his voice almost drowned by the wind. "You're safe now." His gloved hands hovered, cautious not to frighten her. The girl pressed herself deeper into the wall, the teddy bear crushed against her chest. Her lips moved, forming words she seemed too afraid to say aloud. The dog whined softly, lying down to make himself smaller, nose nudging her fingers. For the first time, she looked away from her bear and into the K9's eyes. The soldier knew this trust was not his to claim yet. It belonged to the dog. He let the moment breathe. The storm roared, snow stinging his face, but time seemed to slow as the child's trembling hand finally reached out, brushing against the K9's fur. She winced at the warmth, as though even kindness burned after too much cold. Her eyes flicked up to the soldier's scarred face. He didn't flinch under her gaze. He only nodded once, silently promising something she didn't yet dare believe. Minutes dragged into an eternity as he slid his coat open, wrapping it around her slight frame. The girl didn't resist when he lifted her. She was too weak to fight. Simply held her teddy tighter, head resting against his chest, her body shaking as if each breath might be her last. The K9 pressed close to his side, guiding them back into the storm. The soldier could feel the child's heartbeat fluttering against his ribs, fast, panicked, but alive. As the blizzard thickened, flashes of memory tore through his mind, gunfire echoing across foreign deserts, comrades' voices silenced forever, doors slamming that made him dive for cover, even years later. He forced the memories down. This wasn't about him. This was about the fragile life in his arms. Still, the weight of the past clung to him as heavily as the snow. Survivor's guilt whispered that he couldn't save anyone, not really. Yet here she was, a child abandoned in the cold, and for the first time in years, his purpose was clear. The girl stirred against him, whispering words he almost didn't catch. Her lips brushed the edge of the teddy's ear, voice cracking from the cold. "I'm so cold." The soldier's chest tightened as he leaned closer. "I know," he murmured, tightening his grip around her. "We'll keep you warm." "I promise." But she shook her head faintly, eyes glassy as though speaking to someone far away, someone only she could see. And with her last ounce of strength before sleep dragged her under, she whispered words that struck him harder than any battlefield wound. "Daddy's not dead." The storm pressed harder against the soldier's back as he trudged forward, cradling the frail girl inside his coat. The K9 moved slightly ahead, tail stiff, body low, reading every shift in the snow-laden air. The world was reduced to white and wind, yet even through the howl of the blizzard, the soldier couldn't stop replaying her words in his mind. "Daddy's not dead." He adjusted his grip around her. "She's delirious," he muttered under his breath, though the doubt in his tone betrayed him. The dog flicked an ear back at the sound of his voice, as if reminding him to stay focused. They pushed toward the faint outline of a ranger station half buried by snowdrifts. Its roof sagged, chimney cracked, but it was shelter. Inside, heat still lingered from an old wood stove. The soldier forced the frozen door open with his shoulder, sending a cascade of snow into the room. He carried the girl inside, laying her gently on a threadbare blanket he'd spread near the stove. The K9 circled her once, then lay down protectively at her feet. His steady breathing filled the silence, grounding them all. The soldier crouched close, peeling away layers of ice from her hair. She clutched her teddy with rigid fingers, refusing to let go even in sleep. He reached for his pack, pulling out a dented canteen, and warmed a trickle of water by the fire before coaxing it to her lips. Her eyes fluttered open, glass clear blue, rimmed red from the cold. For a moment, she looked at him as though seeing not a stranger, but something else. She swallowed weakly, her voice barely audible. "You're not him." The words struck like a knife. He set the canteen down, jaw tightening. "No, I'm not him, but I'll keep you safe." The girl's lips trembled. They said Daddy's gone, but I hear him. I still hear him." Her eyes closed again, and she drifted back into unconsciousness. The soldier leaned back, his scarred hands trembling. Hallucination, grief, trauma. He tried to rationalize it, but his mind betrayed him with flashes of his own ghosts. In the crackle of the fire, he heard the pop of gunfire. In the whistle of the wind outside, he heard the screams of his brothers in arms. He dug his fingers into his knees, steadying himself. The dog shifted, laying a paw over his boot, a silent anchor dragging him back to the present. The storm raged on for hours, night deepening. Shadows stretched long against the cracked walls. The soldier drifted in and out of uneasy half-sleep, jolting awake whenever the door creaked or a log snapped in the stove. At dawn, the storm had not relented. Snow piled against the door, sealing them in. But something else pierced the morning, footsteps crunching outside, heavy, deliberate. Not the blind wandering of a lost traveler, but the purposeful tread of men who knew where they were going. The K9 lifted his head instantly, ears sharp, a growl rumbling low in his chest. The soldier pulled the girl into his lap, one hand resting on the sidearm holstered beneath his coat. His breath slowed, combat instincts rising like an old tide. PTSD blurred the line between present and memory. Boots outside became boots on desert soil. The whistle of wind became mortar rounds overhead. He clenched his jaw, willing himself to stay in this room, this time. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then a knock. 3 slow, deliberate raps on the door. The K9 surged to his feet, snarling now, hackles bristling. The girl stirred, pressing closer to the soldier's chest, her teddy bear squashed between them. "Easy," he whispered, though his own voice shook. A man's voice came muffled through the wood. "Calm. Too calm. Heard you found something in the snow? Best hand it over. She doesn't belong to you." The soldier's blood ran cold. His hand flexed over his sidearm. He didn't answer. The voice chuckled softly, like someone amused by a private joke. "You've seen too much. Don't make this hard." The girl whimpered against him, whispering so faintly he almost didn't hear. "Please, don't let them take me back." The soldier's resolve crystallized. Whoever these men were, whatever they wanted, he wasn't letting them near her. The door rattled under pressure, then splintered as someone tried to force it open. The K9 lunged, bodies slamming into the door from inside, teeth snapping. a guttural snarl shaking the rafters. The men cursed, retreating briefly. The soldier pulled the girl tighter against him, mind racing. He could fight, he could flee. But either way, this storm, this cabin, this moment, it was no accident. Someone had abandoned her in the snow, and someone had come to retrieve her like lost property. The girl's eyes fluttered open again, dazed, lips forming a single, broken phrase that froze his blood more than the cold ever could. They said... Daddy knew the truth. The words echoed in the silence after the pounding stopped. Outside, footsteps crunched again, retreating into the storm. Whoever they weren't finished. They would be back. The soldier rocked forward, pressing his forehead briefly against the K9's fur. "We're in this now," he whispered. The dog licked his chin once, then returned to his post at the door. The girl's voice trembled against his chest. "Don't let them find me." "Please." The soldier tightened his arms around her, staring into the dying fire. He didn't say it aloud, but his answer was carved into every line of his weary face. No one would take her, not while he still drew breath. Snow had swallowed the ranger station whole by the second day. The door was jammed with drifts, the windows sealed by ice. Inside, the soldier kept the stove alive with scraps of wood and broken furniture. Smoke trailed weakly from the crooked chimney, a fragile lifeline against the white void outside. The girl stirred often in her sleep, her small hands locked around the teddy bear, as if it were the only thing tethering her to this world. Whenever she shifted, the K9 adjusted too, curling his body closer, head resting near her knees, as though guarding her dreams. The soldier sat against the far wall, rifle across his knees, eyes on the door. He hadn't forgotten the voice of the man outside, nor the words, "She doesn't belong to you." At dawn, when the storm finally softened, he knew they couldn't stay. Whoever had come to the cabin would return with more men. And if what the girl whispered was true, if her father had known some hidden truth, then she wasn't just a lost child. She was a target. They set out again, trudging across the brittle snow. The K9 led, nose low, weaving left and right in purposeful arcs. Every so often he stopped, ears sharp, then moved on. The girl clung to the soldier's chest, buried beneath his coat, her breath faint but steady. Hours later, they reached the edge of town. It wasn't much, just a scatter of weather-beaten houses, a church steeple leaning with age, and a single diner with a flickering neon sign. The soldier moved carefully, noting curtains shift as they passed. The people here watched, but didn't wave. Eyes darted away too quickly, like they'd seen this before and chosen silence. Inside the diner, heat hit them in a wave. The soldier found a corner booth, keeping his back to the wall. He ordered soup and water from a waitress whose polite smile faltered when she noticed the child in his arms. She said nothing, only glanced at the teddy bear, then at the soldier's scarred hands, before retreating. The girl sipped carefully from the spoon he held to her lips. For a brief moment, color returned to her cheeks. But when she set the spoon down, she whispered again, soft and raw. "They said if Daddy talked, everyone would know." The soldier froze, spoon hovering mid-air. His throat worked as he swallowed the words he wanted to ask. The girl's eyelids fluttered, exhaustion overtaking her once more. A man slid into the booth opposite without asking. He wore a deputy's badge on his chest, but his uniform was unkempt, collar stained with coffee. His eyes, though, were sharp, calculated. "You the one who dragged her out of the storm?" the deputy asked. The soldier's jaw tightened. "Why?" The deputy smirked, leaning back. "Because she's not yours, and you'll hand her over unless you want trouble." The K9 growled under the table, low and dangerous. The soldier's fingers twitched near his holster. "She's not going anywhere." The deputy's smirk faded. "Suit yourself. But custody, inheritance, guardianship, those things don't care about guns. You'll see soon enough. Men bigger than me want her gone." He slid out of the booth, tossing a few bills on the table as though to disguise the threat in casual conversation. "You'll find out in court," he said, almost cheerfully. "Or maybe you won't make it that far." That night, they found a place to rest in a boarded-up house on the edge of town. The soldier tucked the girl beneath layers of blankets, the K9 curling at her feet. Outside, the wind moaned through broken eaves, carrying voices the soldier couldn't quite dismiss as imagination. Sleep came fitful. When he finally drifted off, memories clawed at him. He was back overseas, sand burning in his eyes, comrades screaming as shells exploded around them. He turned, and there was Ethan Harper, his closest friend, clutching a photograph of a newborn child, promising he'd make it home. But the memory twisted. Ethan was gone in smoke and fire, the photo fluttering to the ground. The soldier woke with a gasp, drenched in sweat. The girl was awake too, eyes wide, staring at the shadows. She pressed her teddy tighter and whispered, "He promised he'd come back." They lied. They made everyone lie. The soldier's chest tightened. Ethan, her father. By morning, the girl's whispers had settled into his bones like frost. He needed answers. He left her with a kind-faced woman at the town's small clinic, Dr. Mara, who had noticed the bruises hidden beneath the child's sleeves. Mara's eyes flicked with concern but also fear, as though she already knew too much. "Be careful," she said softly. "This town protects its secrets." The soldier nodded grimly, leaving the K9 at the girl's side, then headed to the courthouse. He didn't trust law, not after what the deputy had said, but he needed to see the records himself. Inside he found what he feared, guardianship papers already filed, signed by a stepfather named Richard Cole. A note in the margin referenced military death benefits and inheritance transfers. Everything tied neatly together, like someone had prepared the lie before the twins were even abandoned. His vision blurred, rage pounding in his skull. He gripped the counter, knuckles white, before the clerk hissed quietly, "You should leave." "For your own good," the soldier turned, eyes narrowing. Everyone in this place looked away, pretending not to see, pretending not to hear. The silence of complicity was thicker than the snow outside. When he returned to the clinic, the window was shattered. The blankets on the cot were empty. The K9 barked furiously from the hallway, teeth bared, pawing at the door. The girl was gone. The soldier's world collapsed into a single roar in his ears. His scars burned, his heart pounded, but beneath the chaos, one truth crystallized sharper than ice. They hadn't just taken a child. They'd taken Ethan Harper's daughter, and they would regret it. The soldier's pulse hammered as he crouched near the broken window, breath fogging in the cold air. Snowflakes drifted lazily through the shattered glass, landing on the abandoned blankets where the girl had been. Her teddy bear lay on the floor, its button eyes staring up at him like an accusation. The K9 barked once, sharp, then whined, pawing at the floor. He lowered his nose, inhaling deeply, then bolted toward the back exit. The soldier followed, heart pounding. "Stay alive, kid, I'll find you." They hit the alley behind the clinic, the K9 weaving through the snow like a streak of shadow. Prints marked the ground, boot tracks, heavy and deliberate, dragging smaller impressions. The soldier's chest tightened. They hadn't even bothered to carry her gently. He scanned the street, every muscle alert. The town looked the same, quiet houses, smoke curling from chimneys, but he knew better now. Behind every curtain was an eye, behind every door, silence. The K9 barked again, veering toward the highway. The soldier sprinted after him, lungs burning. He pictured the girl's face, pale against the blankets, her small hands clutching the teddy, and her whispers, broken and fragile. They lied, they all lied. They reached the edge of town where the road cut into the forest. Tire tracks gouged the snow, leading toward a cluster of abandoned warehouses. The K9 stopped, ears high, tail stiff, then growled low. The soldier crouched, eyes narrowing. He pulled his rifle from his shoulder, chambered around, and pressed a hand to the dog's neck. Easy, boy. We're going in. The warehouse loomed, a skeleton of rusted steel and broken windows. Its doors hung crooked, creaking in the wind. Inside, faint light glowed, lanterns, not electricity. The soldier's gut tightened. He slipped inside, moving from shadow to shadow. The K9 at his side. Voices echoed through the cavernous space, rough, male. One of them laughed, the sound jagged and cruel. And then a cry, thin, muffled. The girl. The soldier's jaw locked. He raised his rifle and advanced. They found her tied to a chair, ropes cutting into her tiny wrists. Her face streaked with tears, her teddy tossed in the dirt. A man loomed over her, broad shoulders, scar down his cheek, badge gleaming on his chest. The deputy. "You don't get it, kid," the deputy was saying. "You were never supposed to exist." "You're nothing but proof." The soldier stepped from the shadows, rifle leveled. "Step away from her." The deputy froze, then smirked, hands spreading wide. "Took you long enough." Two more men appeared from the far side of the room, armed, waiting. It had been a trap all along. The K9 lunged before the soldier gave the command. He hit the first man hard, teeth sinking into his arm. The soldier fired once, the crack thunderous in the empty warehouse, dropping the second. The deputy snarled, dragging the girl's chair backward. She whimpered, whispering through tears, "Please, don't let them take me back." The soldier's world narrowed to that whisper. He surged forward. Gunfire lit the shadows. The K9 whirled, snapping, refusing to yield. The soldier's boots pounded across the concrete until he reached the girl. He kicked the deputy square in the chest, sending him sprawling, then ripped the ropes free. "Hold on," he muttered, lifting her into his arms. She clung to him, shaking. But the deputy wasn't done. He staggered up, fury blazing in his eyes. "You don't understand," he roared. "If people find out who her father was, what he knew, everything falls apart." The soldier's blood turned to ice. He had no time to ask questions. He ran. They burst into the night, snow whipping across their faces. The K9 tore through the drifts ahead, leading the way. Behind them, voices shouted, boots thundered, bullets snapped through the cold air, splintering wood and sparking off metal. The soldier zigzagged through the trees, clutching the girl close. Her heartbeat hammered against his chest. He felt her breath on his neck, shallow and terrified. Finally, when the sounds of pursuit faded, he collapsed behind a fallen log. The K9 circled them, ears sharp, teeth bared until the forest went still. The soldier pulled the girl tighter, whispering hoarsely, "You're safe. I've got you." But she shook her head, tears sliding down her cheeks. "No, not safe," he said. "Daddy's not dead." The words hit harder than any bullet. The soldier froze. The K9 whined softly, sensing the shift. He stared into the girl's wide, broken eyes, the teddy bear crushed between them. Her father, Ethan Harper, the man he'd buried in his nightmares. If Ethan wasn't dead, then everything, the war, the betrayal, the silence of this town, was about to unravel. They didn't stop moving until the black skeletons of firs gave way to a lane of dim porch lights and shuttered eyes. Snow fell softer here, as if the town itself was hushing the storm. The soldier kept the girl tucked beneath his coat, the K9 trotting close enough that his flank brushed the soldier's knee with every step, a living metronome that kept panic from speeding his thoughts. He chose the clinic again, not because he trusted it, but because Dr. Mara had looked at the girl with something other than calculation. He rapped twice with his knuckles. Shadows shifted behind frosted glass. The door opened on its chain until a thin hand slipped through and lifted it free. "Get in, quick," Mara whispered. "I heard gunshots near the warehouses." The soldier slid inside. Warmth hit like a wave. The girl blinked at the light, burrowing deeper into the coat, until only a strip of her hair and the button eye of her teddy showed. Mara locked the door, chest rising and falling. "You shouldn't have come back," she said, but the rebuke collapsed into a sigh. "Lay her here." On a narrow cot under a heat lamp, the child relaxed by degrees. The K9 planted himself between her and the door, chin on his paws, eyes never blinking. The soldier peeled off his gloves. His knuckles were split and white at the scars, old wounds reopened by cold and rage. Mara dabbed a cut on the child's cheek. "Name?" "She hasn't told me," he said. "Then pick one for now," Mara said gently. "She'll need something to answer to besides hey and sweetheart." He hesitated. The name rose before he could stop it. Lena. The girl's lashes fluttered, as if the new name knocked softly on a closed door. She turned her face against the teddy. "I'm so cold," she breathed. The soldier squeezed his hands together until his fingers stopped shaking. "I know," he said, voice low. "We'll fix that." Mara glanced up. "You have somewhere to take her?" "Nowhere safe." He lowered his voice. "The deputy took her." Men waited in the warehouse. They said her father knew something that would make everything fall apart. Mara's mouth tightened. She slid a drawer shut, as if closing a thought. "Richard Cole and his friends have run this place for a long time. The sheriff owes him. The pastor blesses him. People like me keep our heads down." "Not anymore," the soldier said. A soft knock turned 3 heads at once. The K9 was up with a low, warning rumble. Mara went still, then relaxed. "It's her," she said, and opened the door to a woman with a county badge clipped to a thick scarf. "Clara Jameson," the woman said, tone brisk, but eyes tired. "Child Protective Services." She took one look at Lena and the soldier and let out a breath like she'd been holding it for years. "You're the veteran, aren't you? The one who pulled her out of the storm." "Just a man," he said. "And a dog." Clara's gaze dropped to the K9, and despite the tension, one corner of her mouth tilted. "That one," she said softly, "is worth 2 men." The K9 thumped his tail once without losing focus. Clara set a file on the counter without fanfare. "I made copies of everything I could touch without being noticed. Guardianship petitions, a claim on military death benefits, signatures that don't match, witnesses who never existed." She slid a page forward. Richard Cole filed for emergency custody on the same day. An anonymous caller reported a neglected child behind the mill house. Her eyes lifted to the soldier. "Neat, isn't it? Manufactured neglect that justifies a grab, followed by benefits and all the leverage that buys." The soldier stared at the jagged black river of signatures. Ethan's name wasn't there, but his absence was like a shadow. "Why help us?" he asked. Clara's mouth pressed into a line. "Because I ignored my gut last year and a boy disappeared. I won't write another apology to a grave." The girl stirred. The teddy bear shifted in her grip, the frayed ear catching the light. The soldier frowned, leaned closer, and noticed a tight seam along the satin, clumsy stitches with grey thread that didn't match the rest. He glanced at Clara. "May I?" Clara nodded. He slid a pocket knife into the seam and teased it apart. Something thin and plastic slid into his palm, a hospital bracelet curled like a pale eel, and beneath it a tiny key sealed in tape. Mara breathed in. "A safe deposit." Clara flipped through the file. "Valley Trust Bank, Richard Cole's favorite vault." She tapped a line. "And look here, a photograph intake tag. The bracelet's tracking number matches a delivery signed by Dalton, the sheriff. He vouched for custody the night the mother died." The soldier traced the number with his thumb. His lungs felt tight. "We hit the bank. We pulled the box. We exposed them." Clara's brows lifted. "You and what army?" He looked down. The dog's eyes were already on him. "2 of us and a good dog," he said, "and the right key." Mara stepped in front of the door. "That bank's a glass house, cameras on every wall. You'll walk in and Richard will walk out with you." "Then we make him follow on our terms," the soldier said. "How?" Clara asked. He lifted the teddy, now lighter by a secret's weight. "We bring bait." They waited until afternoon when the snow thinned to lace and the town stirred like an animal unsure of the new day's intentions. The soldier tucked Lena into the back seat of an old county sedan Clara had borrowed from the lot. the K9 wedging in beside her so close his fur made a wall. She clutched the teddy to her chest, even without its hidden key, as if emptiness could still be a shield. "Look at me," the soldier said softly. Lena's eyes rose. "I need you to stay down and stay quiet. If you're scared, put your hand on his fur and don't let go." He guided her small palm to the K9's ruff. Her fingers sank, and some of the tremble left them. Clara drove. The soldier sat passenger with his hat low and his shoulders broader than they felt. At the first light, a patrol car rolled through the intersection slow, sharking the lanes with bored malice. The soldier's hand twitched toward his holster. The K9's ears didn't flick. Good dog, reading tension, choosing stillness. Valley Trust rose 3 stories of polite brick and tinted honesty. When Clara pulled to the curb, the soldier scanned the rooftops, the door guards, the reflective brown of a sheriff's SUV parked half a block down. He caught a movement on the driver's side, a hand with a nicotine stain tapping the window. Deputy Scar, still limping from the warehouse. "Hey," Clara breathed. "If we're doing this, it's now." The soldier inhaled snow and diesel and steadied the war in his blood. "Mara, you've got her?" "Like my own," Mara said from the back seat, where she'd climbed in 3 minutes prior with a thermos and a lie ready for any passerby who asked why a child slept in a car. The soldier touched Lena's hair. "Back soon," he told her. It was a promise he had no right to make and every duty to keep. Inside the bank, polished floors, quiet shoes, a calendar full of charitable slogans. The teller smiled with eyes that never warmed. "Safe deposit?" "Box 12-6, Clara said, pushing a forged authorization that looked less forged than the original. "Decedent's effects." The teller's gaze snagged a second too long. She made a call. The soldier set his elbows on the marble. The K9 wasn't here to read the room for him. He had to be his own dog. A scent for danger, ears for lies. He heard the click of the door behind the counter. A man in a grey suit came out with a practiced grief face and a security guard that couldn't hide his cop stance. "Miss Jameson," the suit said, "we weren't expecting a county visit." "You never are," Clara replied smoothly. They went through 2 doors and 1 corridor that smelled like safe air. In the private room, the suit set the box on the table and did not leave. He folded his hands, a polite ward against truth. The soldier slid the key into the lock, turned. Inside, a manila folder browned at the edges, a flash drive, and a photo cracked at the corner. A soldier in desert sun, grinning, a baby cap perched on his finger like a puppet. Ethan Harper's laugh lived in that picture. It scalded the soldier's eyes. He opened the folder. "After action addendum, unfiled," the top sheet read, typed and stamped, with dates that never made it into any system. He skimmed lines that bled the past into the present. Weapons diverted during relief op. Civilian casualties counted as environmental. Signatures blank where orders should be. Witness list, Harper, E. A sticky note at the bottom in a square handwriting the soldier knew from old Chow Hall sign-in sheets. "If I don't make it back, tell the truth for me." E. The suit cleared his throat. "We'll need that back for record," the fire alarm screamed. The lights cut. A pressure wave hit the building like a giant hand slapping brick. Clara grabbed the folder and drive. "Go!" They burst through emergency stairs into grey light and falling ash. Across the street, a gas station bloomed with orange, tanks roaring as if they'd found their own storm. The shock had blown out the bank's front panes. People screamed. Sirens woke and ran. The soldier shoved Clara into cover behind a planter. "Stay low." He looked for the county sedan. The sheriff's SUV had drifted closer during the call. The deputy was out now, pointing, shouting into a radio. Then the soldier saw Mara, half out of the back seat, shielding Lena with her body as wind pushed glass dust down the block. The K9 had already launched from the car, sprinting full tilt toward the chaos, ears flat, a meteor of muscle and intention. "Shadow!" the soldier roared. The dog veered, not toward fire, but toward a man stepping out from behind a pickup with a pistol lifted, not a uniform, but a felt hat and a church tie, Pastor Hale. He had blessed so many ribbon cuttings his blessing was a currency. He sighted down the barrel at the sedan's back seat. Shadow hit him mid-torso. The shot cracked wide. Hale crashed to the pavement. The gun skittered, and Shadow's teeth found fabric and forearm, and the place where lies tremble. Two more men pivoted from the far pump, guns low, walking the line between crowd and target. The deputy saw the same picture the soldier did and began to move, not toward the gunman, but toward Mara's open door. The soldier sprinted. Time did the trick it sometimes does in bad minutes. It stretched like taffy until every step felt both instant and years long. He hit the deputy's shoulder first, drove him into the SUV's fender, and the world snapped back to speed. They grappled, age and fury, training and raw need. The deputy spat, "You can't stop a town," and grabbed for the soldier's sidearm. "Watch me," the soldier growled, and sent him to the sidewalk with a fist and a piece of every funeral he'd stood through. He wheeled. Clara had the folder jammed under her jacket. Mara was dragging Lena over the seat toward the far door. The girl's eyes were open and huge, reflecting fire and a trembling sky. She looked past the soldier, past Shadow's fight, and fixed on Pastor Hale, whimpering under the dog's jaw. Her voice was small but clear. "He told them to take me." Hale's face twisted. Pride, fear, calculation. He tried to pry Shadow off with his free hand. The dog clamped down harder. The soldier moved to disarm the two men by the pumps when a new sound split the sirens, the groan of steel under heat. The canopy over the pump sagged, a rib of it snapping with a shriek. People ran, the heat slapped the street. For one breath, everyone was made of light and decision. "Get her out," the soldier shouted. Clara grabbed the car keys with shaking hands. "Where?" "Old Ranger Road," he barked. "The cabin." Mara shoved Lena into her arms. The girl flinched, but then her hand skated blindly until it found the K9's flank. Shadow gave one last wrench at Hale's arm, released, and spun to the car like a compass needle snapping north. He launched into the back seat without looking away from the soldier. The canopy sagged again. The soldier turned to the two gunmen, raised his weapon, and the street vanished in white and orange as the canopy tore loose and fell. He woke to the sound of someone calling his name from a long way off. Smoke curled across the sky like ink in cold water. His ears rang. He pushed himself onto an elbow and saw three things at once. Clara's taillights fishtailing away through slush, Shadow's head up in the rear window, eyes on him until the car vanished, and Pastor Hale being hauled upright by the deputy, blood on his sleeve, hatred clean as glass in his stare. Hale lifted his chin. The sound that came out of him was not a sermon. "You don't understand," he called over the hiss of steam and the wail of engines. "Truth will burn this town to the ground." The soldier got to his feet, swaying. He tasted copper. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and left a red crescent on the snow. "Then we start with the kindling," he said. Hale smiled the way men do when they've paid a sheriff and a judge. "Court convenes in the morning," he said. "Proof or no proof, we'll take her in daylight." The deputy bundled him into the SUV. The door slammed. The engine coughed and pulled away, leaving the soldier in the stink of fuel and a street full of broken glass and eyes that finally looked long enough to see. He bent and picked up the photo that had fallen from his coat, the one of Ethan, with a baby cap on his fingertip. The corner had burned black. The smile was still whole. Behind him, the fire crews roared alive and found their rhythm. Ahead of him, the road north sketched a thin, dark line through the snow. He started walking. Somewhere up that line, a child with a new name pressed her hand into a good dog's fur and whispered, "Please don't let them send me back." He answered out loud, to the smoke and the sky and the ghosts that always came when alarms wailed, "I won't." And then, because promises are not enough to make a life, he planned the next move. He would walk into court with a folder of truth and a town that didn't know what truth felt like anymore. He would stand in front of a judge blessed by a pastor and paid by a stepfather. He would bring a dog who could smell lies. He would bring a photograph with a grin that made men braver. And if the law failed, as it had failed so many times, he would still not let go. The wind shifted, the smoke thinned. Far off, a siren died. In the quiet afterward, his heart steadied the way it had at the edge of every ridge he'd crossed. Not calm, but clear. Tomorrow, the courtroom. Tonight, the road and the snow and the work of breathing. He set his shoulders and followed the tail-light ghosts into the white. The courtroom smelled faintly of old varnish and coffee grounds, a mixture that clung to the rafters as stubbornly as the town's silence. Snow tracked in by boots melted into shallow puddles on the floor, reflecting the stained glass windows of the county building. The soldier stood near the back, hat in his hands, coat heavy with frost. His scars itched beneath the fabric, battle scars that never healed, the kind that whispered whenever he heard a gavel strike wood. Shadow, the K9, sat at his side, chest rising slow, but eyes alive, tail still. He didn't need commands. He knew this was enemy territory. At the front, Richard Cole sat smugly in a suit too expensive for these walls, his hair slicked, his tie straight, his hand resting on a briefcase he hadn't earned. Beside him sat Pastor Hale, arm bandaged from Shadow's bite, but face smooth as marble. The deputy leaned in the aisle seat, a cast on his wrist, grinning at the soldier like a boy who thought he'd already won. The girl, Lena, though only he and Clara used the name, wasn't in the room yet. That was deliberate, keep her hidden until the last moment. But the soldier felt her presence like a pulse behind every heartbeat. She was somewhere down the hall with Clara and Mara, tucked into a borrowed coat, teddy bear in her lap. The judge entered, robes heavy, eyes cold. The gavel struck once. Case 17-42, guardianship hearing, claimant Richard Cole, respondent. His eyes flicked at the soldier, as though at an inconvenience. Is not listed. The soldier's jaw locked. Clara stood, file clutched in both hands. Your Honor, we contest the petition. Fraudulent documents, conflicting signatures, and a minor child in danger. Richard Cole rose smoothly. His voice rolled like warm oil. Your Honor, this is nonsense. The child was left in my care when her mother passed. I've raised her, provided for her, and filed all paperwork legally. These accusations, he gestured dismissively at Clara, are desperate attempts to slander a man doing his duty. The pastor leaned forward. And I can vouch for Mr. Cole's devotion. Our church has always stood by his family. Shadow's ears flattened. A low growl rumbled deep in his chest. The judge frowned at the sound. Control your animal, sir. The soldier didn't look away from Cole. He's reading the room better than you are. Gasps fluttered through the benches. The judge's gavel hammered again. One more outburst and I'll hold you in contempt. Clara stepped in, voice steady. Your Honor, may I approach? The judge waved her forward. She laid the folder on the bench. Filed under sealed custody. Guardianship documents with forged witnesses. Bank transfers linked directly to military death benefits belonging to Ethan Harper, deceased soldier, decorated veteran, and the child's biological father. The soldier stiffened at the name. Ethan Harper, his comrade, his ghost. Cole's mask slipped, just a flicker, but the soldier saw it. The judge adjusted his glasses. These are serious allegations. Do you have corroboration? The door at the back creaked open. Mara entered, guiding Lena with both hands on her shoulders. The child clutched her teddy, hair falling like a veil. She walked carefully, but when she saw the soldier, she broke into a half-run, small boots slipping on the wet floor. She stopped only when she hit Shadow's fur, burying her fingers in the rough like she'd been told. The courtroom went silent. The judge cleared his throat. And this is, Clara's voice softened. The child. Ethan Harper's daughter Cole shot to his feet. Objection! She doesn't belong here, Shadow barked, the sound sharp as a gunshot. The child flinched, then whispered, voice barely reaching the soldier's ear. He told them Daddy's not dead. The soldier froze. The words struck like a hammer to his ribs. Not dead. He had buried Ethan with his own eyes, or had he? The judge frowned. What did she say? Clara steadied the girl, but the damage was done. Cole's face had twisted, the deputy's grin had cracked, and Pastor Hale's hands clenched tighter around his Bible. Secrets creaked under the weight of truth. The judge sighed, rubbing his temples. We will recess until I've reviewed. The lights cut out. Gasps filled the room. Shadow sprang to his feet, teeth bared, barking once in alarm. The soldier grabbed Lena instinctively, pulling her against him. Glass shattered. A door slammed. Shouts erupted down the hall, and then the smell of smoke. The soldier's stomach dropped. They weren't going to fight this in court. They were going to erase it in fire. He looked at Clara. Get her out. Shadow was already lunging toward the smoke, muscles rippling like coiled steel. The soldier pulled Lena tight against his chest. Her whispers burned against his ear. Don't let them take me back. Please, he answered without hesitation. They won't. And then the ceiling groaned. The courthouse was under siege. The courthouse was never meant to withstand fire. Its timbers had been laid a century ago, seasoned in dust and gossip, brittle as old bones. Now they snapped in the heat, crackling like gunfire across the chamber. The smoke came first, thick, acrid, blinding. It rolled down the aisles like a black tide, forcing coughs, choking gasps from bystanders. The judge stumbled backward, robes flaring, gavel useless. Against flames. Papers flew as clerks scrambled, their screams smothered by the roar of fire. The soldier's training kicked in. He pulled Lena tight, tucking her face into his coat. Breathe here, he ordered, pressing her mouth against the fabric. Shadow stayed close, hackles raised, nose twitching, searching for exits. His growls guided them like a compass, but there was more than fire. Through the haze, the soldier saw them, two shadows, slipping into the courtroom from the side door. The deputy, cast still on his wrist, holding a crowbar, and behind him, another man with a canister of gasoline, face wrapped in cloth. Arson wasn't just accident, it was strategy. Clara grabbed Mara, shielding her with her body as she pointed toward the back exit. This way. Cole didn't move. He stood tall near the judge's bench, flames reflecting in his eyes. It ends here, he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the chaos. The girl doesn't leave this building, Shadow barked, lunging forward, teeth bared. The deputy swung the crowbar, metal whistled through the air, barely missing the dog's skull. Sparks flew as it struck the bench. The soldier reacted, kicking a chair into the deputy's knees, sending him sprawling. But the second man swung the canister, striking the soldier across the shoulder. Pain lanced through the old wound in his arm, the scar from shrapnel years ago. He staggered, nearly dropping Lena, and then flashback. The smoke wasn't courthouse smoke anymore. It was battlefield smoke, black and thick, laced with screams of brothers in arms. The heat wasn't fire, it was the sun over sand, baking him alive under his helmet. The crowbar's clang was gunfire, echoing down alleys of rubble. He froze, his hand shook, his lungs locked. Daddy! The words sliced through the illusion, not his daughter's voice, not his, Ethan Harper's girl, but it pierced anyway. Shadow lunged, sinking teeth into the arsonist's arm. The canister dropped, spilling fuel, but sparing the soldier's skull. Flames licked higher, sparks igniting banners and flags. Lena tugged at his collar, whispering into his ear, "You promised." Her voice was fragile, but it anchored him. The soldier blinked hard, forcing the battlefield back into memory. His boots were on courthouse tile. His mission was here. He roared. An animal sound pulled from every grave he carried. With one arm, he swung the arsonist into the deputy. Both crashed into the benches, wood splintering under the weight. Cole moved then, finally shedding the suit's pretense. He drew a pistol from his jacket, leveling it at Lena. "She doesn't leave alive." Shadow leapt without hesitation. The gun cracked once, echoing like thunder. The dog hit Cole mid-chest, jaws clamping onto his forearm. The pistol clattered across the floor, sliding beneath the burning pews. Cole screamed, thrashing. The dog's teeth didn't let go, but Shadow whimpered. The bullet had found him first. Blood darkened his fur, dripping into the flames. "No!" Lena screamed, wriggling out of the soldier's arms. She fell to her knees beside the K9, clutching his neck. "Don't die, please don't die." The soldier moved faster than thought. He grabbed Cole by the collar, slamming him into the burning wall. Smoke bit his eyes, but rage sharpened everything. "You'll never touch her again." Cole sneered even through the pain. "You think you're her savior? She's nothing. Her father is—" "Alive," Lena whispered. Her eyes, wide with terror, locked on the soldier. "He told me Daddy's alive." The soldier froze. Cole's sneer widened. The flames roared louder, beams above groaning under the weight. The roof threatened collapse. Clara screamed from the exit. "Get out! Now!" Shadow whimpered again, eyes clouding but still fixed on the girl. His tail thumped once against the floor. The soldier had seconds, choices: pursue Cole, end the threat, or lift Shadow and Lena both, risk dying under the roof. His chest tightened, not from smoke, but from the crushing weight of decision. He remembered Ethan Harper's laugh, the way he slapped his back after missions, the promise they made: "If I fall, you look after mine." "Redemption," the soldier whispered to himself. His arms moved without hesitation. He scooped Lena into one arm, Shadow into the other, grunting against the weight. Cole stumbled away, vanishing into the flames, his fate unknown. The soldier staggered toward the back exit, smoke closing in, beams falling. Mara and Clara pulled the door wide. Snow poured in, icy air rushing to meet the heat. He stumbled out, collapsing into the snowbank, clutching both the girl and the dog against his chest. Behind them, the courthouse groaned once more, then collapsed in on itself, fire devouring the secrets it was meant to keep. Lena wept into his coat. "Don't let him die. Please don't let Shadow die." The soldier's hands trembled as he pressed his coat against the dog's wound. His voice cracked like it hadn't since the war. "Stay with me, boy." Stay snowflakes hissed against burning debris as sirens wailed in the distance. But above all the noise, one whisper lingered, pressed into his chest. "I'm so cold." The soldier pulled her closer. "Not anymore." "Not while I breathe." Snow still fell, quiet and unhurried, as if the world outside the courthouse had never known fire. The sirens had gone, the crowd dispersed. What remained was silence, and the soldier kneeling in that silence, his coat darkened with blood and soot. Lena clutched against him, Shadow barely breathing in his arms. The paramedics arrived in a flurry, voices sharp, cutting through the stillness. "We've got a child hypothermic." Dog with a gunshot wound, man with smoke inhalation. The soldier didn't hear all of it. His ears rang with the memory of collapsing beams of Lena's whisper. "Daddy's alive!" He tried to stand, legs buckling under weight, but he refused to let go of either of them. "Sir, let us take them." "No." His voice was raw, hoarse. "They don't leave my sight." The paramedic hesitated, then nodded. Together they carried all three into the ambulance. Inside the hospital, the lights were too bright. Machines hummed and beeped. Nurses moved like shadows at war speed. They pulled Lena away first, wrapping her in warm blankets, inserting IVs for fluids. She cried out, reaching for him. "I'll be right here," the soldier rasped, gripping her small hand until the last moment. "You're safe." Shadow was lifted onto a separate gurney, his blood smearing across the soldier's sleeve. The dog's chest rose shallowly, ribs quivering with each breath. A vet was already there, summoned urgently, whispering instructions that blurred into static. The soldier sat in the hallway, alone. His hands shook, not from cold, but from memory. He smelled smoke when there was none. His ears rang with gunfire when the corridor was silent. He pressed his fists into his knees, whispering under his breath, "Not now. Not here. Stay with them." A knock on the wall. Clara leaned against the doorframe. Soot streaked across her face, exhaustion carved into every line. "They'll be okay," she said gently. "The girl's warming up and Shadow—" "He's fighting." Stubborn, like his handler, he almost smiled, but it broke halfway. "She said her father's alive." Clara's brows drew together. "Ethan Harper." "That's impossible. His death certificate." Cole wanted me to believe it. He wanted her to believe otherwise. And she knew something. Something we missed. From her pocket, Clara pulled the keepsake Lena had clung to since the first night. A photograph, edges worn soft. Ethan Harper, in uniform, grinning, an arm slung around the soldier's own younger shoulders. Behind them, a scrawl, Ethan's handwriting. "If you're reading this, I didn't die for nothing. Find the truth for her." The soldier's throat tightened. He pressed the photo to his forehead. "I promised him." The custody hearing. Weeks later. The courtroom was different this time. New wood, fresh paint. The smell of ash still lingered faintly, but it was rebuilt. Lena sat between Clara and the soldier, her small hand gripping his sleeve. Shadow lay at their feet, bandaged but alive, his tail flicking lazily. Every eye in the room was on them. The judge adjusted his glasses. "After reviewing all evidence of fraud, abuse and negligence, custody of Lena Harper will be awarded to—" "Objection!" The opposing attorney rose, frantic, waving papers. "Her stepfather's guardianship—" The judge's gavel cracked. "Denied. Mr. Harper is under investigation for arson, attempted homicide, and federal fraud. He will face trial." Lena pressed closer against the soldier, whispering so only he heard. "Does this mean I don't have to go back?" He turned to her, voice low, steady. "No, sweetheart. You're home now." Her eyes filled, not with fear this time, but with a cautious kind of light. The judge's final words sealed it. Permanent custody is granted to Sergeant Michael Cross. After the hearing, the town gathered. People who had once turned away now faced them, shame etched into their faces. The neighbor, who had once ignored Lena's bruises, stepped forward, tears brimming. "I should have done more," she whispered. "I'm sorry." The soldier nodded, not in forgiveness, but in acknowledgement. "Do better now." "That's what matters." Clara clasped his shoulder. "You've given her more than safety. You've given her a family at the cabin." Months later. Snow still fell, but inside the cabin there was warmth. A fire crackled in the hearth. A family photo hung on the wall. Lena in a yellow sweater, Shadow sitting proudly, the soldier behind them with a hand resting on each. They planted a small tree in the yard that morning, Lena's idea. "So we always remember growing, not just surviving," she'd said. That evening, they released lanterns into the sky. 3 of them, one for Lena's mother, one for Ethan Harper, one for the life ahead. As the lanterns drifted higher, Lena pressed against the soldier's side. Her eyes were steady now, not haunted. She whispered, "I'm not cold anymore." The soldier pulled her close, Shadow leaning against his leg. "Because this is home," she finished, smiling faintly. The soldier didn't answer. He didn't need to. His hand rested on her shoulder, firm and certain, as the lanterns disappeared into the night sky. Closing message sacrifice had carried them through fire. Loyalty had bound them together, and love, unexpected, undeserved, but undeniable, had given them a second chance. The past wasn't erased. The scars would never fully fade, but the future was theirs, written not in ashes, but in light.